That is weird. I was turning the light on, and as I turned the light on, I was thinking, it could. Now, how long will this light last till it blows? And it blew. Right at that moment. That's very weird. So I need lighting. I can just use the light from the screen tonight. Yes. Right. Let's get going. I'll open Nugget window client. Start that again. Hal, run Nugget window.
Running Nugget window server. Hello Dino.
I'll just added that hello Dino by itself. Hey Tony, how you doing? Hard. What's this hard thing? Right. And I'm going to open the Phi project. How? Open Phi project. Other Windows, run application. What's up today? Continuing to refactor Phi, as I am now back to where I've reached the stage where I'm working with Phi. Hal, open Phi project.
Opening Phi project.
Wi-Fi? Oh, and the prize for today's bad joke goes to I suppose I can put that light on so that we can see. But I've lost my light. Blue, I don't have any spares. So let's go ahead and do what? Where did I leave it? Is it in a compilable state? Yes. Does it run? Yes. And I'm refactoring in order to be able to I'm refactoring in order to be able to add some flexibly add internal functions. So I was working in built-in. This is compiling. I had built it a way to pass references to what I needed to pass references to, and I was using a opaque pointer, which, go to the definition of this, is basically a void pointer. But you can use that if you, well, yeah. I don't know, does the compiler prevent me if I have another one with a different name? But because it's a void pointer, it allows it. I'm not sure entirely. This light is annoying me. Hang on. I think it might be easier for me just to swap them out. La, 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 la. Oh. I couldn't find that. Oh. La 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 la. It wouldn't be, maybe it was easier just to swap them, but whatever. Let's. We'll take this guy out. There's the old one. Ah, it's turned on. Right, there we go. Great. This is more fun. Until I lose a screw. Oh, I don't think this one had a screw. La 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 da da. I did have it there. Right. La 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 la. I lost my I've lost a bit of weight, and so they can see that as I have to keep pulling my pants up. I'm wasting away in lockdown. You don't have to go into the office anymore. Yeah. Now, I actually have light again. Very good. So, what was I doing? I want to... This print function. Right. Well, now, print. Okay. It's compiling, but I haven't actually hooked up that yet. Now I want to understand something else, because it'd be good if I could start using bookmarks. I'm going to delete all my bookmarks. The problem is I'm using F2 for paste. You need to sort that out now. So I'm doing back into DevOps. Always DevOps. Now, anybody coming to the channel is going to say, Dino lost his pants. I mean, that happened. I had to pull my trousers up. Lose my pants. It's also complicated by the fact that in the UK, pants, it doesn't mean trousers. It means underwear. So, Lord knows what people will think. There's also the expression, don't get your knickers in a twist. Could be interpreted as a variation of that. As I ranted over the edge or something, I don't know. But anyway, show command. Right, so the command I'm interested in, bookmarks. So I did Control Shift, clear book, Control Shift F2. I'm going to change that to yeah, because I'm using copy paste. Why don't I use set a bookmark? Toggle bookmark, which is currently Control F2. That's fine. Shift bookmark is clear bookmarks. But I'm going to make clear bookmarks Shift Control Shift Alt F2. And then next bookmark can also be done as Control K or Control N, and previous bookmark is Shift F2. What's Control M? Collapse all outlining. I mean, why have that? I'm going to use N and M. Previous bookmark is going to be Control N. Well, I thought that was next bookmark. Oh, it's Control K, Control N. Hang on a minute. So if I'm here and I go Control K, Control K, Control N. So it's a double E thing. Control A, K, Control B. Code snippets manager. All this random stuff. Control K, Control B. Actually, I think I know what I'm going to do. Customize the keyboard. I'm going to do bookmarks. Bookmark. Text editor. Next bookmark, Control K, Control N. Previous bookmark. Control K, Control B. Assign. So next and previous is done like that. I'm going to do Control K, Control M to set the bookmark. Assign. All right. That should do the trick. So if I put a bookmark here, Control K, Control M. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the file that I'm working from here. I need to find print function call and control A, control M, and then if I do control K, control N, I can switch between these. I like that. So if I'm doing this print here, the other thing that would be nice is to, well, I suppose I can use the old outlining for this. By doing that, I've actually removed the function but I can't see it anymore, so that's really a bit lame. What was this go to done for? Oh, no, it's fine. Looks like I can do that just fine. So if I try that again, I close this and I just do like that, maybe. Right. So this should now call Control K, next bookmark, this guy. Now I've made this static. Right, because you never access it directly. You do it through the map. Because right now I only have one. So it's not if it's right. What I need to do is to see if I can execute the built-in function, which I need a function here because of execute built-in function, and what I'm going to do is apply the name for that. Right. And if I execute the built-in functions, I need to look it up in the map. So I say built-in map. Oh, it was going according to a string in the map. So actually it's probably better that I do that. Yeah. So built-in map name. I need to check if it exists. If oh, it's ugly. built-in map find key equals end. So if that is true, it doesn't exist. So if it's not equal end, then it means that there is an entry. If there is an entry, I can get it. And then I execute it. I return true, else return false. Ooh. So there we go. This function into built-in.h. Do I have that yet? No. Hash include built-in.h. I need to add a new file. New item. Class. Cannot include built-in.h. Thought I just made a new file. Oh dear, oh dear. I fell victim to that thing again. Header, there we are. Remove. Let's try adding it again. Add. New item. Header. And let's try it. String undeclared identifier. Oh. I hate that. Const char star. Then I don't need to include any headers. Built name, too few arguments. Call. Oh, that's true, because I need to pass these in now. As well. Like so. And the handle. And that succeeded. So Hash include built-in.h. So now I need to just do execute built-in function. The name is left C string. I need to put the stack. I also need a VM handle. And FIVM state. Try this. This function does not take 3 arguments. Is that correct? Go to built-in.h. There, I didn't update that, did I? Oh. We're going to go to built-in.h here. I need to paste it in there. Error. Cannot convey FIVM state. Let's just go to the definition of that again. Ah, it's a reference. Syntax error missing. All right, yes. Semicolon. If R, if not R, then it means it didn't find a built-in function, and so it's going to look for source code function instead. In theory, this should work fine. I'm going to add a new command for Hal, please compile. Hal, please compile. Hal, please compile. That's interesting. What went wrong there? Hal, please compile. Hal? Hello, Hal? Hello, Hal? Hello, Hal? Hal, you've gone dead on me again. Hello, Hal? Are you receiving me? Listening got suspended for some reason. Hal, please compile. That seemed to work. Mm-hmm. Hal, run. And it failed to run. It's got unknown function print here. So basically executing the built-in function didn't work. But I think the reason is because it couldn't find it as an internal function because I hadn't actually executed the initialization. Uh-oh. This is plugged into the wrong computer. I'll compile. I'll run. No, I'm not actually calling the initialization yet. I'll compile. I'll run. There are items left on stack. Well, it worked, but there's a bug that's been introduced. Great. Why is this blank? Oh, because there's something else in front of it. This one. There we are. Let's look at the differences on phi.cpp. Quite a lot already. Can't see the one that is around line 1300 or so. What? Not showing that difference. Don't have an external diff set up. Seriously? It's not showing all the changes. Oh. I hate this stuff. This is a source tree. It's got a kind of a hardwired limit on here. I need to use an external diff. Can I set that up? Yeah. Settings. Oh, my options. Diff. Okay, diff 3. Oh my god, right. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah. The program files. Where did it install it? I didn't check. Oh, there it is. KDiff 3.
I captain.
Shh, I didn't say.
Compilation failure.
Oh, quiet. Right. It's going to be K. Div 3. A div 3. Okay. External diff. Right, so I've got that. I'm going to compare the new code with the old code here. So if it's a function call, it checked to see if it was the text was print. There needs to be, oh right. Yeah, the protocol here is there needs to be a go-to done afterwards. I'm going to follow the same pattern I had before. This only happened. Look, I'm using a go-to statement. I'll compile. I'll run. Okay, let's fix that problem. So the go-to. Camera doesn't like the go-to. Look, it's gone all blurred. Hello, camera. How are you doing today?
Hello, Dino.
Hal, I'm talking to the camera. I'm not talking to you. Is that better now? Is your head cleared? Camera. Code Justice Police. So that basically is the refactored version of the thing. I'm so tired of using it. Also, the thing is, I work all day sitting there with my hands on the keyboard, and I want to have a bit of fun. You know, the typing. I've been typing all day. So let's just new command. How next book mark and key press, Control K, Control N. Our next bookmark. So I've implemented all of that. Well, I've copied that over. The whole point of this was to be able to add a new function that's an internal function, because if I'm going to talk to the network viewer, then, or network graphics terminal, I'm going to need some built-in functions for. So the first one I'm going to do is let's do a reset. That's a nice simple one. Reset the scene. And of course, you know, it's like, oh, I can build the architecture from here, but this is a simple reset. Right. Clear graphics. Whatever. Right. So this is going to register the function, and now the new function I want to create is in here. And there we go. Clear graphics. And now I need to tie this into my library. Right now I'm just going to, there should also be an initialization, shouldn't there? So where was that now? Oh, it was Nugget window, that's right. So if I include Nugget window in here, which already is, no it isn't. Our next bookmark, I want to actually put it in here. And so just called init viewer. Oh no, that's the wrong place for that. Go back to Phi. There we are, and somewhere down the bottom here, let's set a bookmark. I need to initialize the viewer. Let's just test this runs. Run. What's the problem? Init viewer identifier. Yes. Run. Problem now. Init viewer identifier not found. Well, that's unfortunate. Namespace Nugget window. I started using a namespace, didn't I? Run. And actually there you can see that in my viewer something has appeared, and that's because the program has initialized the viewer. It's really just happening in the main of the Phi project. at the moment. Our next bookmark. I'm going to remove this bookmark. Oh, yeah. So, oh, this is straightforward. Up here. I'll make a cube. How next bookmark? How next bookmark? Oh, this is clear graphics, right? Yeah. What am I? That was the initialization, but I want to be able to do. Ah, yeah. Did I do a reset command? Init viewer. Right, I didn't actually create one yet. Void reset. Okay, I'll run. Okay, still working. But I've reset, and that's what's going to happen in our next bookmark. Our next bookmark. There we go. Nugget window reset. If I run the command clear graphics. Okay, I'm going to. I'll run Nugget window.
Running Nugget window server.
It's actually restarted Nugget window, and now I'm going to go to my example code, which is here. Just put that there out of the way. On begin, I need code blocks, comment blocks. Haven't put those in yet. This is the empty program. I'll run. Okay, I want to see if the. Oh yeah, I know how I can test that. Obvious. What we're going to say is on begin. Reset graphics And that's it. So my program is just saying when the program starts, reset the graphics. Let's see if that works. How run? How run? Okay, it didn't work because it didn't find of an error, unknown function, reset graphics. How next bookmark? Oh, because it's clear graphics. I really should use the right term. Clear graphics. How run? How run? Hello, Hal. Wiggle the ears. Hello, Hal. Hello, Hal.
Hello, Dino.
Hal, run. Hal, run. Run, stop. So it doesn't appear to have done anything. It just ran and it stopped. It should have actually called the reset graphics from the phi language. Now to find out, we can obviously open up, run a netcat to connect to the thing. So NC 127.001 port 777 make cube. Interesting that we don't see the cube. There's something that's gone a bit wrong there. Position 000, make cube. Okay, it was whatever. Right. Scale 333. Apply scale. Right. So we can. I've just modified the scene when I run the phi test code. Yeah, it's reset the scene. So this works, and just to prove that that is, oh. That's not a proof because it will have reset the scene at the start. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change this a little bit because it was the init viewer code has a reset in it. All it's going to do is connect. The reset will have to be done explicitly. I'll run this test again. Make cube. That's because I ran the thing. Pos 000. Make cube. Make cube. What? Con reset. Not sure what's going on there. All right. Oh, because okay, I think I know. Make cube. Oh no. Pos 000. Make cube. There we go. I need to disconnect from here, and then when I run this program, it should connect, but not clear the scene. Right, so the scene did get cleared, but that's because I had this command on clear graphics. I'm going to comment that out just to test this, and then connect and make a cube. Oh, there we go. Right, now if I run this thing, it should not reset, so that proves that it is actually happening from the language. So that's fine. The next one, I don't need to worry about, you know, what I name these too much at the moment. It's like this is all prototyping, isn't it? I was thinking, like, yeah, what command shall I use within the language in order to make a cube? Well, let's try. On begin, clear graphics. Now, we could also do on begin, make cube. But the problem is that let's call it make graphics cube. The problem is that with the Phi programming language, there is no program counter. Therefore, there's no way of defining which of these should happen first. And that's sort of by design. There could be some list-like constructs to make that easier, but this is not really allowed, because I could end up making the cube before I clear the graphics. So just to get the initialization to work with the pure idea of Phi, on graphics cleared, make graphics cube. So, and actually currently it's on change, graphics cleared, make graphics cubed. Graphics cube. If I try running this, I'm just curious what will happen. Token recognition error, right? Because I don't use semicolons. Run stop. It actually didn't do anything. So let's make the functionality of clear graphics which is just here, built-in func clear graphics. When the graphics are finished, it needs to modify a variable. Now I can't remember where I put the, where did I put the variables? Oh, yeah, there. Okay. So I think I might be able to do set store, if I'm lucky. Virtual machine handle. I probably haven't written this yet. The variable, which is called graphics cleared. And there'll be the value to set it to, which will be true. And this probably won't compile. But you see, the idea here, this is how you integrate sort of native libraries with Phi. Really straightforward. The clear graphics function, when it completes, will set graphics cleared to true. And because graphics cleared is set to true, this will then make a cube. And the beautiful thing about this approach is, as you might see, that by making the language work in this way, it will never try to make the cube before the graphics are initialized, and it will always make a cube when the graphics are initialized. It's a rule, it's always make a cube when the graphics initialize. So in order to implement this, I have to make it that it's the API for clear graphics, if you will, is that when the graphics are cleared, it will indicate this with graphics cleared. And this means that if it took time to clear the graphics, let's say that the operation to clear the graphics needed to happen in the background or could take a certain amount of time, this is completely unfazed by it, and there's no need to change any code to make it handle it. It's one of the ideas. In effect, everything is asynchronous. It's one of the consequences of not having a program counter and control flow. So let's see if this will not build, because I haven't, it can't find set store. So what we do is we go to get store, and we'll find that definition, which was inside phi, and I need to do a set store. I think I can probably just follow the pattern. Well, no, set store. Come on. Set store. We have some. Go to definition. We were here. State set, right. I can make this is a wrapper. I can make this work any way I like. So I'm just going to do set store, taking the opaque state machine handle, the ID of the variable, it's actually the name of the variable that I wish to set, and then was using expression item. I don't think I have bools yet. Let's go back to built-in. So let's just set this to 1. Yeah. Yeah, I'm using expert item, so I should just use it. So const x item and item. Then I have to convert the opaque pointer to non-opaque pointer, and then I can just say set store ID, item. See if that compiles. So set store doesn't exist, but this is the more important one. Set store is not a member of FIVM state. I've probably got a little bit of refactoring to do here. This is a set store, and this is inside the class expressor right now. Now looking at it, there's nothing in here. So I had this before. There's nothing in here which is actually specific to the expressor in any of these three functions. So I'm actually going to source tree gone. Oh my word, I should just use git from the command line, frankly. Alright. We're going to commit a bunch of stuff just to make sure that I don't lose work. Have I got any other files in here that are important? What do I do with all this crap? At the full CPP runtime. Oh, flippin' heck. Alright, let's just add some ignores. Everything under VS. Ignore everything under Antler 4. False. Built in. All this. All this. A stage. Whatever. Commit. Push this to the server. Cool. Does it say there's something, this one on this commit? Oh, because of that. Commit the git ignore. Push that as well. So now I sort of bank that before I do this bit of refactoring. I'm going to pull all of this out. Refactoring operation I did before. Get store. Yes, right. This is in FIVM state. Oh, there we go. We put this in here. And now I just need to fix the compile errors. Hal compile. Hello, Hal. Give it a little another wiggle. Hal compile. I need to be actually in here. Hal compile. Right, set store, identify not found. That one I'm ignoring. This one, FIVM state, undeclared identifier, because it's not needed anymore. So I'm just going to actually do a search and replace. No. Replace Find and replace. Quick replace. I control H. Alright, so what we're going to do is fi VM state dot is going to be replaced with nothing. Okay, so replace next. There we are. So we're actually in the class now. How compile. Dump variable to state file. This was for debugging purposes. Let's comment that out. How compile. Let's comment out these as well. How compile. I'm in the expressor and I want to get this set store, and it can't find it because it's now moved into FIVM state set store. How compile. There we go. So we can go to this and paste. 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 How compile. Right, this is fine. That one I need to different stage of the refactoring. This one in the expressor. Okay. This one and this one. How compile. Right, so that's cool. We've got to do set store. It's not found yet. The reason being there we go, these guys here. And then I have these C style wrappers to avoid having header file problems. Right, so I'm going to copy this and I need to paste it in the bit where I put the wrappers. Where was that now? That's a good point. If I go to go to declaration, and that's this file, fi public. How compile. Cannot convert argument 3 from int to const express item, which, you know, that makes sense. So what I want to do is make express item. I can't remember. Can we autocomplete? No. Okay, let's go to the definition. Yeah. The name actually doesn't matter. I probably removed that. But this creates an expression which is basically an integer expression which I assign to the variables. The variables are expressions, for simplicity's sake. That might actually be interesting as well, but we'll see. How compile? No overloaded functions take 3 arguments. So what we have to do is see the set store. Oh, ID. Yeah. I don't know why I've got that there. I'll compile. Expect this to compile this time. Okay, now that's fine. And we make sure that it runs. I'll run. It ran. And we've got make graphics cube function is not found. So that's okay. It was expected because I haven't put that in yet. So we're going to go and look at the built-in code. And I want to add a function here called make graphics cube. So we make the graphics cube. Now, everything else. Target window. Make cube. And it's name, pos, rot, scale. The name of the cube. Yeah, it's necessary to give the cube a name. I forgot about that. I need to pass arguments in when I make the cube. If I look at the phi thing I'm going to do here, it says graphics make cube, but I'm not specifying any arguments. Cube. And then I'm going to hardwire it for now, because what I'm going to have to do is to have the built-in function taking arguments, which is fine, but some of those arguments are going to be vectors. I don't support that type yet. That's why this is going to be a bit of a long road. But I can test the principles out by just sort of making a default cube for now. So it's going to make a cube, but the cube is going to be called cube. And it's going to be a vector 3. nugget window, vector 3, 0, 0, 0. Rotation. Angle axis. And scale. So and so of course trying to connect the principle of the Phi language to a graphics output device starts to raise interesting questions about how to do it. And if I continue following the model, I need to ensure that when the cube is made, yeah, I'm going to, I mean, I could just say, make the cube. But I want to do something after the cube is made. So it does follow the same pattern. Some of this might in the end up getting annoying, but then it can be fixed in the language. So the key point is the architecture, that the language is based on. But I'm going to continue with this pattern. This is the principle of the language, after all, since there's no program counter. So yeah, it's what has to be done. So it says cube created. Oh no, wait a minute. How am I going to move the cube? Oh. It's cute. Because you see, the problem, and I was just thinking about, is that in the construction of some kind of language entity that allows for the manipulation of the cube, I need something that's a bit like a class. Phi doesn't have classes. I'm not sure yet whether that's actually relevant to the language architecture or not. The thing about Phi is it's all rules. So all you have are a collection of rules. That's the way it works. It's all to do with a collection of rules. Then it just occurred to me that what I need to do is to have a variable in the Phi language that represents the position of the cube, for example. And now that needs to affect the position of the cube visually. So what you've got to do is to create a chain of dependencies. This is the principle of the language. I struggle a little with it because, my optimization brain sort of pops in and says, but is this going to be slow? But yet, you have to put that out. When you're building an architecture, you have to put that out of your mind. It's like the optimization is a separate problem. First of all, you have the way the language functions architecturally. Then the second part is then how you optimize it so it runs fast. So what does this mean? It means that the creation of a cube, as in this case make graphics cube, needs to create a variable that holds the state of the cube. And so that's what's returned, not cube created, but the actual cube as an object. It's then possible to wait for a change to that cube. So the language then would become something like, you would do something like this. It's like, on change graphics cleared, right? Make graphics cube, and we put a name in. I mean, I'm not going to, right, so cube, and then I say, right, well, not quite. It's like I almost need a... Oh, right. So sorry, I'm actually having to do a bit of language design here. What does make graphics cube do? I mean, you're borrowing an idea from like a constructor. This is a constructor. If I make graphics cube a constructor, I need to put it somewhere. Cube equals, and so now, yes, I need some kind of like a class, except they are not classes, they're structures. So bear with me here while I sort of figure out the design, because it's not just the language. Then I've designed the language, and then I also have to design how I use the language to achieve the thing that I want. The idea here is this is like a constructor. So it will go and make the cube. I do actually work without talking out loud. I am capable of doing that, believe it or not. Although I have been known to mutter a bit when I get frustrated. So I do. I can get frustrated, but that's not bad actually. The frustration is like this. That it's a motivator as well. And, sort of like, I'm a human being. I'm not a robot. I know it's very fashionable to try and pretend that we're all more like machines than humans, but I'm a human being. Last time I checked, anyway. On change, graphics cleared cube equal make graphics cube. So what's actually happening here is that it will make the cube, and now there is a reference to the cube, but it's nothing like a reference, but you can think of it like a reference. The reason it's not a reference is everything's by name in Phi. So you never hold a reference to anything. It's another principle. You never have a pointer to something. Memory is irrelevant. There is no memory. There is only the names of things. Where'd my water go? There is only the names of things. So that's why it's not a reference. There's no, not a reference. It's because you can have pass by value, you can have pass by reference, but the really beautiful one is pass by name. This is one of those things that doesn't apply in many languages. Certainly in C++, there is no pass by name. The closest that you get to pass by name is... No, there isn't. You can make it by... you can create a function to do the same thing. And in fact, a map is, a key value pair is accessing information by name. So yes, it exists, but it's not fundamentally part of the language. It's a library inside the language. But the language itself can't do that. It doesn't have that as part of the language. It's a kind of subtle point. If I want to pass into a function something by name, literally, well, no, it's not literally the only way to do it. The only way, there are different ways you can do it, but one way is that you actually pass in a string. And so this is the name of the thing I want. So like in Unity, for example, you access things in the scene by name. You could also have a hash. You could also have just a numeric ID. But whether it's a hash or a numeric ID or a string, it's a name. That's the way I mean a name. You could also call it a label. Pass by label. You just don't have it. You can pass a variable x to a function. If it's an integer, it would be passed by value. Okay, you can say, well, that was a name. Yeah, but the thing is that name is set at compile time. You can't pass the name. You can't. The closest you can get to that is probably using not even templates. You can't do it, because templates, the only thing you can do with that is use it to create a new function, a new whatever class or function, which is the same as others, but you've changed a type. So there's a sense of dynamically generating a type, but it's not really even that, because that's done at compile time. If you use the C preprocessor, you can actually, because that does text substitution. It's true, it's still at compile time, but you can create something where you pass in the name of the variable. Classic example of this is using something like the assert, where you can have a macro which takes a parameter a, and then you can use a as the parameter a, which if it's a string, no, it doesn't need to be even a string, it's just an identifier. You can use the pound a operation to turn that identifier into a string. And so that's really funky, and it's quite actually useful, because it gives you a form of reflection without actually needing to have a gigantic mechanism for reflection in your language. In fact, it's genius. That C preprocessor is genius. Whoever came up with that idea was a genius. And so then the next 50 years, there's this obsession to get rid of this genius And when you are programming, I'm ranting here, when you're programming in C#, in Unity, on Android or iOS, and your code gets processed by IL2CPP and gets deployed onto the device, and it runs on the device, and suddenly you've got no reflection. All gone. You've got no... I mean, some reflection you still have, but the one that you care about, when the thing crashes, you don't have that, because it crashes and you don't get the align and file information. It's not there. And you know why it's not there? Because IL2CPP just loses all of that information. I'm not sure exactly why. It might be that it's because it's not possible, or it could be just because they felt it wasn't important. But I tell you, it's really important when the thing crashes and you don't know which file and line it crashes at. And then you go, if only there was a solution to this. If only there was a way to compile in. I just need to know the file and line. Surely there must be a way that we could get the compiler that knows when it compiles the line, what the file is and what the line is, and put that into the source code at compile time, so that then it's there and you can use it no matter what happens to your code. No matter how much of the reflection information is lost for whatever random reasons, such as it's all lost because you're building it for Android or iOS, and for optimization purposes, they force IL2CPP and won't even allow you to make a debug build. Yeah, and then you've got if only, and then you think, damn it, I wish C# had the C preprocessor in it. I think out of desperation you could actually take the C# code and have an intermediate step where it is pre-processed with the C macro preprocessor to give you macros that allow you to create a log message that is able to print the file and line with a technique that's 50 years old but works. Rant off. I'm just going to check my letter. Which letter? Cryptos is a scan. If it's success, I'll return to... You think so? We'll return to medieval times. We're going to return to medieval times. Whatever happens, mate, you know, in all probability, eventually. I don't want to scare anybody, but all civilizations collapse in the end. Every single civilization that has ever existed before this civilization has collapsed. And I bet they all thought that they wouldn't. But they all did. Everything has its time. And I'm quite sure that eventually, when we are on the way out, we will very definitely go back to medieval times. It's no better or worse than everything else, frankly, I think, to be honest. Because money is as well, exactly. That's what Tony was saying. The kick-off civilization, yes. I don't know what you mean. Yeah. The thing about money is that It's a token of wealth. If the population was able to accrue wealth, then eventually things would go not so well. We already know what happens there. So it's actually, I'm just giving a counter argument, playing devil's advocate here, right? Because you see, the thing is that it feels like to me the purpose of things such as taxation, such as debt, such as inflation, all these things, these are artificial concepts that just exist because we created a token of wealth, which is called money. What actually matters are things such as properties, buildings, and resources, things that are useful, things that directly affect our standard of living, our ability to live, and so very important on the wealth thing is actually the ecology of the planet. It should be considered, of course it isn't considered important, not in the same way as tokens of wealth, and this is the disease that humanity has, but the point here is, if people were not taxed, if there wasn't such a thing as inheritance tax, if we didn't have all the myriad of ways that our tokens of wealth fall away from us, if the currency meant something real and people could accumulate it, think what would happen. It doesn't take a lot to think what would happen, because it already has happened. As people accumulate the wealth, you're going to get it pooling. You're going to get people fighting for resources. You're going to get people protecting the resources. And what you end up in the end is a situation where very few people own most of the actual real wealth. And you actually end up with a feudal society. Right? So you can't escape it, I suppose, is what I'm saying. That is almost like what we have now. I mean, we pretend as though we don't, but the reality of it is everybody is pretty much has to follow along, has to play. We all have to play the game. We just do. We have to play the game within the economy. We have to play the economy game. There's no choice, really. If you want to take part in society, you have to play the game. And the thing about the game is that the vast majority of us, are not going to get on top of the game. And there are a few people who do get on top of the game. And you can see that is the case. It's like, I think 50% of the world's wealth is owned by a very is it 1% of the population, which is what you get. If we turn to Switch and it's like it feels wrong to say, okay, we can just sort of make everything, free everything up. We get rid of taxation and inheritance tax and so on. We let families accrue their wealth. But the thing is, the problem then is that if everybody can't be a millionaire. It's like, could you imagine what would happen if over time families could just pass on the accrued wealth to the family that follows, and there was no taxation on that? So it's like you have a house, you pay off the mortgage of the house, right? And then you give it to your children. So they then start, the next generation starts off with a big advantage because they already have a house. You go down a few generations, then you have a whole bunch of people who fall outside of the rules of society. The rules being that if you want a house, you have to go and get a job, and you have to have a mortgage, and you get it. Somehow, this doesn't happen. It's like it's really, really difficult because the taxation makes it impossible in the end, in the long term. You see what I'm saying? But then on the other hand, you couldn't have everybody building more and more ownership of property, because then you're going to be left with people with nowhere to live. So I think that's the reason why we've ended up where we are, with a financial system that is deliberately a bit fake. You can't really say we own things. You in principle you own them while you're living, and then when you die, everything's reset back to zero. Not just for you, but also more or less for those who follow you. It's quite interesting. I don't really think it has a solution. So crypto doesn't change any of that. That's a bit of a distraction. It's like tulips, the tulip craze in the Netherlands. Everybody was buying tulips because it was a sound financial investment. Problem is they rotted, and the market fell out. People weren't interested in tulips anymore. Why are people interested in Bitcoin? There's only one reason that they're interested in Bitcoin, is that they look and see how the value of Bitcoin is going to change against against normal currency. So there is the reason why Bitcoin is a bit iffy, if you ask me, is because the only measure of the value of Bitcoin is literally normal currency. If Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies had some kind of intrinsic value away from normal currency, then it would be meaningful, but they don't. In principle, if you want to use a cryptocurrency, you're going to convert it into hard cash first, then you will use it. There are some places that will, restaurants that you can go and get your food or whatever, you get your meal and you can pay in Bitcoin, and you go, aha! But no. But the problem is this is only valid if the entire supply line was all running on Bitcoin. Do you think that the restaurant goes and buys its food with, Bitcoin and pays its staff with Bitcoin? I don't know. Anyway. Oh, a lot of countries will lose sovereignty. What is sovereignty anyway? I mean, it's like, what does it mean? What's the definition of sovereignty, Mike? What does it mean? I mean, it's a word that's thrown around, but what does it actually mean? In the UK, this was a big deal, sovereignty. It's actually relevant to the UK because the UK actually has a monarchy, although it's not ruled by the monarchy. It's not a monarchy, but there is an actual queen. And that's what sovereignty, from the word sovereign, is basically a ruler like a king. What does it mean? The right to set your own laws? Well, yeah. Well, the UK had that already. It wasn't. The laws were not being decided for them. That was just propaganda. What is sovereignty? What does it mean? The actual reality is, it's a bit like, well, if you live entirely by yourself and as a hermit, then you can have whatever values you like, and you don't need to worry about having or keeping friends. You basically remove them off the table, and then pretty much you can do what you please, because there's nothing that for you to worry about how your actions are going to upset other people. I mean, you won't have to worry about trading. You don't have to worry about buying. I mean, if you're a true hermit, you can't pop down to the shop, right? If you really exclude yourself from everybody, then I suppose you can have complete sovereignty. If you do not have to trade, if a country does not have to trade with another country, if a country does not have to communicate with another country, if it doesn't have to, engage in disaster relief efforts with another country, just is completely and utterly isolated, then you can say it has complete sovereignty in practice. But if you do want to negotiate with others, if you want to live your life not as a hermit, then you're going to have to give up a little bit of sovereignty. I'm abusing the word sovereignty here, but you've got to give something up. You have to give up a little bit of control, a little bit of something. You've got to think about everybody else, or at least the people that you want to interact with. The biggest argument in favour of breaking down the barriers between countries is that unless we do that, everything's likely to break. What is it that we're trying to protect anyway? I just find, maybe it's because of my position. I'm dual nationality, so maybe I'm not quite so. But people, come on. You look at what happens when countries get when patriotism goes out of control. Historically, when patriotism goes out of control, it always results in bad stuff happening. Always. And history books sometimes glorify that, and they say there was they made the great empire, like the British Empire, this big empire, and it stretched across the world, and at one time the British were very proud of their empire. But, at what cost? There's such an empire. You don't create such an empire without destroying a lot of stuff. And, and in the end it collapses. As all empires do. What is the point? And is it something really to be proud of? I think it'd be something to be more proud of is those good old-fashioned values of caring, of humanity, being humane, of cooperation, of working together, not working against each other. That dreaming thing you know, it's become relegated to the realms of fantasy. And yet, whether we like it or not, it's where we will eventually end up, because it's where we always eventually end up in the end. Either the nice way or the unfortunate way, that's where we will end up. When a civilization collapses, something gets rebuilt afterwards. And I imagine that in that rebuilding period, it's quite common for people to pull together. It certainly happens, like rebuilding a country, rebuilding after a war. Eventually, it's almost like that thing that Alan Watts often says, is like a fool should be allowed to indulge in their folly until they become wise. It's like an oscillation. It's really weird, because it's like there's an enlightenment that happens at some point, and then it's more and more and more and more, and then at some point it starts to fall apart, and then it swings from one extreme to another, right? So we're in the extreme right at the moment, which basically means barriers are thrown up. We divide. We're divided from each other, And then there's a big because this is unstable. You can't have divisions within society. It creates instability. Then something terrible happens. And then at that point, everything starts rebuilding again. And it's like, to rebuild, everybody pulls together. And it just keeps doing this oscillation throughout history. Maybe it's just the way it's meant to be. Am I making any sense at all? Hippies, you know what? I mean, hippies sold out. Maybe they gave up. I mean, I don't know. I certainly know that there was more than a little, shall we say, you don't think about hippies, it's like the word hipster. So there's a phase, I think it's over now, but there was a phase where hipsters were the butt of jokes. And we've had vegetarians. Butt of jokes. Oh, there was this... Oh, yeah. Did I tell you the story about the falafels? Some weird things have happened to me in my time. I'll have to tell you the story about the falafels. It's connected with vegetarianism, but I'm going to just read the chat here and see what's happened. That's BS. Did your parents give you a house? Mine didn't, and yet I paid off mine. Yeah, but Mike, the point is that if you were allowed to accumulate in a family the wealth, then at a certain point people wouldn't need to find houses anymore. They just live in the one that their parents had. But it's quite rare for somebody to be in a position for some mysterious reason, despite, or maybe because house prices are forever going up. A weird thing happens that, you're born, your parents have a house. If I actually lived in Italy, you can live with your parents, I suppose. Eventually you would expect to accrue. That doesn't happen, and I think it's an actual deliberate mechanism within the economy. You don't have more Dinos coming in making fake. Oh yes, the fake letter. I mean, it's like that's the funny thing about facts is like people will believe what they want to believe. So therefore, what's the point about talking about truth? Is there any point of talking about truth? Really? You know, is it true? Is it not true? I kind of yawn these days at that. It's like all I know is what's happening now. Because, you know, people believing in flat Earth, for example, what's that about? It just, whatever. Everybody can just believe whatever they want to believe. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with people wanting to believe whatever they want to believe, as long as it doesn't make my life miserable in some way. Yeah, I know, Mike, but eventually it should be possible. You would have thought it would be possible. You could have the mobility of buying and selling property. So guess what? There's this thing called stamp duty. So when you buy and sell, there's an extra tax on buying and selling property because that creates this a bit of an issue with mobility. You know, it's capital gains tax, stamp duty, and don't forget you've already been taxed on the money that you have used to buy your house. Don't forget that as well. I mean, you can forget that, but it's like you've been taxed on it. So in actual fact, in order to buy a house, the house costs twice as much in effect than it actually costs because you're also paying tax while you're earning the money. Yeah, great. So falafels. What's the story about falafels? Can't really go into which year this happened in. And one of the nice things about, you know, being around 40 years since I sold my first game, I can talk about these things and nobody could tell. But yeah, a place I worked once, and there was these falafels, and at a party that this company had, and the falafels were actually quite nice. I quite liked them. But there was this woman who was there, and I'm not going to say who she was, but she obviously didn't like vegetarianism because she took exception to the falafels. And I felt bad when she was slagging them off for the person who had prepared them. So, of course, I did what I do. Hang on, that's a bit off. And I like the falafels. So I jovially said, I like the falafels. So this mean woman grabbed a bunch of falafels and came straight up to me, and she said, "You like the falafels, do you? You like the falafel?" And proceeded to ram them into my mouth. and there you are. You know, when things like that happen, it certainly gives you a perspective. It's like, okay, so that's the kind of that's the side of society we're in. Very good. Carry on, everybody. And she wasn't doing it. She wasn't doing it as a joke. Oh, maybe she'd had a bit to drink, but anyway. My word. I have gone completely off track. So what I'm thinking, it's okay because the the thing is though that with that ramming, I mean, I could have. It's a form. It's not a nice. It is a. You could almost call that assault. I mean, in some countries that would be considered assault. To ram food, an adult ramming food into another adult's mouth. I mean, it is pretty. It is a violation, isn't it? You know, I think I can say that without being called a snowflake or something. It puts me in mind that this particular person would be the kind of person who goes around calling people snowflakes, I imagine. Anyway, enough of that. As you know, while I'm ranting, my brain is working subconsciously on the next thing. And that will be this whole point about this construct. What would need to happen is that the cube, which gets created on the graphics system, I also need to create an object, a variable, whatever I'm going to call it, right? A compound variable. I don't know. That's something that represents the cube. Then I was thinking, but would I make the thing respond to change in state of the cube to say if there is a change to any part of the cube, like its position or its rotation, any of the variables in the cube, members of the cube, that I could do on change cube and it would just cover all of them. That's one reason for my hesitation in considering this. But I'm not going to do that because I don't need to. Because it turns out that that is just a convenience for something that could be explicitly stated anyway. So what I'm kind of thinking is, once this is done, I will have available some variables such as cube x, cube pos.x, cube pos.y, cube pos.z. Cube rot a, cube rot x, cube rot y, cube rot z, cube scale x, cube scale y, cube scale z. These will all appear. They will appear because they will have been set by the function that creates the graphics cube. And if I want to have something to represent that the cube was created at all, and this is just I'm thinking as well as how the quickest way I could implement it in the language as well. But it doesn't. It could also be cube. There's no reason why not. Cube itself could be a bool that just says whether or not the cube exists. Well, Mike, meat is murder. In a way. It's just, permitted. Society has this habit of changing its priorities and its morality depending on circumstances. And there's where we draw the line is entirely arbitrary. I think it's healthy what the words that one uses are not important. I think what's important is to recognize that, when we eat meat, it's resulted in the death of a creature. But it's a little more complicated because also that creature would never have been born these days. Sometimes I wonder about, the extinction of the cow. If we stopped eating meat entirely around the world, what would happen to cows? So, their numbers would go down. I'm not being facetious. It's just like it's philosophically, that's a kind of a difficult question, isn't it? I mean, is it that the cow is a less... I mean, because after all, the animals, they would be born and they would live out their lives and they would die anyway. I mean, is the problem that we... the problem is the cows have been sort of genetically manipulated over thousands of years. But does that make them kind of second-class citizens as far as life on the planet goes? And it's just a bit weird. And not to mention that given the damage... Well, I know it's not. I know, but it depends how you look at it. That's what I'm saying. It depends how you look at it. It's very easy, right, to go and laugh at somebody who says meat is murder, but I won't. Because if you choose to look at it that way, it is true. If you choose to look at it that way, it's true. Don't even bother trying to deny it. It depends on your definition of murder. What I'm more concerned about is what would happen to the ecology of the planet if, given all the damage that we've done to the planet and the ecology, tomorrow we suddenly stopped all eating meat. It'd probably be a worse catastrophe. There is a problem with the quality of our soil. There is an idea that cows could save humanity. Could save the planet. Let me put it that way. I know about saving humanity, but saving the planet. Cows could save the planet. Why? Well, because if you imagine like the buffalo roaming over the land, think of it a bit in that way, they're an essential part. They can perform a very important role in keeping the soil healthy just through what they do. But if you do that, we still need to eat. So you get this kind of interesting situation that potentially could arise, which is the one that in order to save the ecology, it's necessary to ensure that we eat meat. It could actually turn out that way. And this all comes back to the point of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You know, like, because of vegetarianism, palm oil is, production shoots up, and then that's really damaging to the environment. So this is one of the reasons why I'm not too interested in fanaticism either way anymore. It's like, yeah, if somebody wishes to consider eating meat as being the equivalent of murder, I'm going to say it's a perfectly valid way of looking at it, but I'm not going to go crazy in supporting some kind of extreme view. And it's that extremeness that I'm suspicious about. And when somebody calls it murder, you get a hint of that extreme view, because it's extreme language. There's also no doubt about it. So I will say, yeah, that's up to them. They can choose to look at it that way. I will respect their right to look at it that way. And I will also have a little bit of suspicion, because they're using extreme language, and as a rule of thumb, extreme anything is bad. And it's just purely logical. Somewhere there's a kind of a middle way, with all of this. I quite like Alan Watts's take on this, where he says, look, everything that in order to survive, you have to kill stuff. Whether I'm not calling it murder, but it is killed. You eat a plant, you've killed the plant. You eat meat, an animal was killed. You eat a fish was killed. There is no escaping this. So he says, the least you can do, then, therefore, is to respect what you eat by ensuring you cook it well. And for me, there is an actual wisdom that's worth holding on to. Not extremism. It doesn't mean that we should ignore the issues that are there. It doesn't mean that factory farming is a good thing. I think factory farming is a terrible thing. I don't know what to do about it. But what you can do is you can live your life well, with a good spirit. And that's what's missing these days. Living well, living with good, what's the word? There's a good word for it. Yeah, with a good spirit and a good intent. And no extremism. And being able to say, yeah, okay, I can see that. So someone's like believes that the world is flat. At one time, I would have laughed at them. Now, I just say it's your prerogative if you wish to view that the world is flat. And I kind of amused but not in a laughing way, kind of intrigued might be a better word, the arguments that can be concocted to support this viewpoint. But if somebody wishes to believe that the earth is flat, let them. It doesn't affect me. That's what we need. We need more of that. And if I had to say, Mike, one thing, it's like I often see you sort of reacting to things like that, and you talk about, like reverse discrimination type things, and political correctness, and often this is pointing towards things there is a sense of extremism. But I'm just going to point out that the reaction to try and pull and tug that back just as hard is also therefore an extremism. And that's one of the problems that we have in society today, is that when people have a point, the point is lost because of extremism. Somebody comes along and says, we really should think carefully about, the impact that meat eating has on the environment. At this point, it's an invitation to consider and think about it. And then it seems like 3 seconds later, there are people marching down the centre of the capital, shouting, "Meat is murder," And it's like, okay, all right. Now, I respect the point of view, and I'm not going to criticise anybody for taking that point of view, because I really don't have an argument against that point of view. Not one that is, intellectually sound. But what I am going to also say is that in the history of humanity, nothing has ever come. Nothing has ever come that was positive out of extremism. Never. And I recognise that 3 seconds later, march down the capital, so to speak, people shouting, "Meat is murder," is coming across as extreme. and that's what I sense of the discomfort sometimes with what you're saying, Mike, is that like you there's this reaction. It's an extreme. I'm not going to criticize you for holding that view, but I will be suspicious. I'm not going to criticise anybody for holding a view anymore. I would have once, but I will criticise if I sense that it's extreme. Or rather advocate that what we need is less extremism. We need the poorest, the people who really get it, they're the ones in the centre. Because they've got the left and the right are all firing things at each other. And the ones in the centre, they're the ones who get hit accidentally. And then later they get hit on purpose, because what they do is they stick up their big signs and say, "Please settle down, you guys. Look, we're not going to make things better with you lot over there going, "Wah, wah, 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 wah," and you lot over there going, "Wah, wah, 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 wah." And look, I tell you, it's really not going to get better if you guys keep on doing that." And the extremes on either side, they listen to this and they start get irritated by it. It's like those nagging people in the middle. Who do they think they are, trying to tell us that we can't, fight each other? And so and then they start fighting the centre, and then the centre becomes the bad guy. We're already there, by the way. That's why when you look at, you go on to, say something like Twitter or whatever, and you look at all of the the virally posts that are out there. You know, on the one side, it's all the people who say, we must hold our spears upright. And on the other side, there's all, we must hold our spears horizontal. You know, and those are all churning away. But the people who are saying, it doesn't really matter how we hold our spears. What matters is that we work together in a positive way, right? No, they get nowhere. The people with that message, that will never go viral. It will never in a million years. You're not going to see the people in the centre spreading their message like wildfire. And that's because the centre is not the cool place to be. You choose these days. Are you going to be with the cool people over there or the cool people over there? Now, of course, the people over there think they're cool and the ones over there are not cool. But similarly for the other side, right? But the centre, they're both agreed. The centre, not cool. In fact, everybody agrees the centre is not cool. Pick your side. We're already there. And that breaks my heart, like many things. No, it's extreme. It's not because you're in the wrong team. I'm criticised. You're criticising. My point is that I think you tend to criticise people who are extreme, but you do it by taking the other extreme point of view. There's another way, which is to just be in the centre and say that's a bit extreme. You don't have to say anything else. And you make the point. But you can't tackle extremism by being extreme in the opposite direction. It's just extreme, right? That's my point. You worry about my extremism when I use go-tos. No, I'm countering an extreme. Extremism was the go-to statement considered harmful, that somehow became go-tos are evil. You see, Dijkstra, who inadvertently started all of that, was actually not an extremist. There's just one truth. There is. If you believe that, I'll respect you for your belief in that. But if you ask me, the idea that there is just one truth is perhaps a bit extreme. Nobody likes a fence sitter. No, that's my point. Because it gives the game away. Because it's in a way, it's all a game. If you go to a football match and you've got people supporting one side and the other people supporting the other side, and you go there and you say, settle down, everybody, come on, stop all this shouting, stop all this insults at the other side. People, come on, this is just a game after all. You'll see how popular you're going to be. Well, it's exactly exactly that. You know, that might be a bit of an extreme view, admittedly. I put my hand up, that could be. Anyway, right, so back from all of that. What I'm going to do, because I'm still working on this, is just I'm just making it I've got to pick a direction here. When this is called, this is going to create all of these. I think I'm going to make it create a variable called cube, which is the actual variable itself, right? And this is going to be just an integer, and it's going to be it's interesting actually, because in the phi language the idea is that things are triggered by change. Well, there's this concept of something is changed because it didn't exist and now it does. And I'm not sure how that is. That's what this would be. Cube did not exist before, but now it does. It's the easiest way to implement that is actually to implement it as an int, and then to take the view that if cube doesn't exist, you get a 0, and then you set it to a 1. And then you can test to see if cube exists. There are other ways, but that's basically the idea. So what's going to happen is there is going to be a, also to keep it simple for implementation purposes, once this is made, there will be a variable called cube that will be created, and it will be an integer for now, and it will be set to 1. So if I do on change cube, this would actually mean on the creation of cube. And if cube is set to 0 or cube disappears, also the destruction of cube. I suppose I could cube exists, but I think I'm just going to go with this convention. They will also create cube pos x. These are all going to be treated as not really hierarchical. They're just, you know, like namespaces. So these are individual variables that will exist. The interesting thing there is that I don't have a vector. All right, now I don't have a vector type. I could have a vector type, but I don't need to, because it's only a convention that would reduce or ease programming. So for proof of concept here, I don't need to have a vector class. I can just have them literally like this. So I'm not going to implement all of this in one go. What I am going to do is start with just that, so that I can specify the position of the cube. Right, so what will happen then is that this rule says that when the graphics are cleared, we make a cube. This code will call that function. The function will tell the graphics module to create the cube. For now, that cube is going to be created with default values, so it's going to appear at the origin. Later I can add arguments to the graphics cube to tell it to create the object and put it in a space, but I don't need to do that now, and it's going to be quite a bit of work, because what I'm juggling in my mind, all of this, is setting what the next little milestone is, what the next target is that I can test. So I don't need to worry about arguments in the constructor yet. So when I do make graphics cube, it will make the cube. It will put the cube at the origin. It will create a variable called cube, which it will set to 1, which can be used to check to see when the cube comes into life. It will also create a variable called cube.pos.x and cube.pos.y and cube.pos.z. Those will all be set to floats. And when any of those variables are changed, I will need to think about how I update the position of the cube. Now, to do this in a strictly phi way, I would transmit to the viewer the new position of the cube only when the cube moves, not doing it every frame, because I don't want a flood of network traffic. It's pointless. I'm not going to 60 times a second do this. So how can I achieve that? What's the quickest way of achieving it? And actually, I've got it. This works quite nicely. So what I'm going to do, in fact, really, what I'm going to do now is construct a program in phi that I'm going to implement in order to make the cube appear and then move. This will be the next milestone. Yes. And so now I'm going to write that in phi, taking into account the API that I'm developing in phi. So there's many layers. There's the language, and then there's the API for the cube, and then there's the implementation of the AI for the cube. But I think I've got there. So this is the way it would look. On begin, clear graphics. On change, graphics cleared. But I'm actually going to change the way this works, because cleared equals clear graphics. This is quite neat. What does this mean? When I clear the graphics, it will return an account of how many times clear graphics has been called. So it will return 1 the first time, and then when you call it again, it will return 2. The point being, then I can check for a change on cleared anytime the graphics are cleared, the count goes up. I've considered like numbers of ways of doing that, but it just seems very natural to use a counter and then just say when the counter changes. And so I'm going to go with that. Then I can say on change cleared, then cube. Yeah, this is actually quite elegant, I think. Then cube equals, and I'm going to make, let's just say graphics cube. This feels good. Now, on change cube. So in fact, what happens here is that cube itself will be an integer, in fact, and it will be incremented anytime there is a change to cube. Yeah, that's a bit, yeah, how would I do that? Oh, we'll come to that. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll just roll with it. Anytime there's a change, right. So on change cube, then what do I do? Ah, yes, that was the idea. On change cube, update cube. Now I need to sort of have in mind how to show if something is a native thing. Actually, let's make all of these actual phi functions. See why in a minute. On change cube, update cube. I'm going to put an underscore here. If I put an underscore, it means that this is a built-in function. This is part There's nothing to stop me having rules. Ah, right. I see. Oh, right. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll need language constructs because cube is the name of my cube. I can't put it in a library, but you know what? That's fine. It's still going to do this. So clear graphics is going to be a built-in function on clear cube, graphics cube. Can that be built in? Yeah, go with it. Otherwise I'll never make any progress. Right, so on change cube, update cube. So basically what's happening here is I'm saying when I make a change to cube, update cube. But how do we know when cube changes? Again, I'm not going to worry about elegance or performance here. I just need to make it function, and then I can worry about how to, you know, make it easier to use or speed it up later, right? I have to keep on reminding myself of that. So what we could do is on change, may have to change my because I'll probably have to build the language to do that. But you see, on change of any of those, when any of these change, when cube pos x changes or cube pos y changes, or okay, then what we do is cube plus plus. So this rule says when I change any of the coordinates of the position of the cube, I increment the integer value cube. This will cause a change in cube. Right, when cube is changed, update the cube. The cube is also modified when we do this graphics cube. I mean, this is good. Good place to start. The next thing then is that I need to know how to update the cube 60 times a second. So I need to now have a tick. So on begin, we could say, all right, I'm not going to get fancy. We'll for this we will hardwire that the on change clear yes, on change cube when cube equals 0, then tick equal how to say how to make a tick function. Okay, yeah, only then the tick, I'm going to have to revisit this, I'm sure, but for now what I could do is have a timer. There must be a better way, but this will do for now. Start timer tick, and this is going to be, say, one 60th of a second. So what this will do is, this would be a native function, and what it does is it will create a variable called tick, and it will increment it 60 times a second. So that's that. On update cube, right? And then I can say on change tick cube.pos x plus plus. This is a proposed program to create the cube and then move it in the x axis by 1 unit every frame. So I'm just going to run through it. Hey Tony, I don't know, we're all in lockdown here, but the music is coming along, and I will, when we're out of lockdown, I will organise a thing. I think I'd like to book a theatre for a night. But anyway, we'll see. I mean, you know, I don't know if we'll ever get out of the lockdown, really. I mean, it just feels like I'm beyond caring, to be honest. It is what it is. This is an example program to do that. So what's happening here is I'm saying that when we begin the program, we clear the graphics. When the graphics are cleared, we create a cube. When the cube is first created, and of course I could add in here other sort of functionalities, such as literally have on create, but what I'm doing is trying to keep the number of language features down so that I can get to a point where this runs in the shortest amount of time. So this is, I'm building this with most of the functionalities already implemented. So on begin cleared equals clear graphics. On change cleared, cube equals graphics cube. On change cube, when cube equals 0, so this is basically saying when cube changes, as long as it's the first change on cube, which is indicated with 0, then start a timer. Of course, I could just simply have this timer running all the time. You could, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I'm making it more complicated than it needs to be. So I'm actually not going to do that because that is just going to happen. I'm going to implement this tick internally. And why not? You know, tick will increment 60 times a second. I don't need to put that in there. It's kind of confusing things. So on begin, clear the graphics. I'm also going to get rid of that. The graphics will be cleared when we run the program already. I did that because I was testing it. On change cleared cube, no, I'll just do on begin then. On begin cube equals graphics cube. On change cube, update cube. This one, on change cube pos x, cube pos x, increment cube. So this line here, this one is actually implementing something that could be a language feature. I could internally set it up so that cube is treated differently, and if I say upon change of cube, all it means on change of cube or any of its children. However, that could be really inefficient, because if the object is big, how can it check everything in the object? Well, there are ways that could be optimized. But since there are questions, I'm not trying to do that right now. That would be a lot of work. But this would pretty much already be implemented. I need to check if I'm actually, able to separate these with commas right now. But other than that, it's straightforward. So basically, when any of the coordinates of the cube changes, we flag that the cube has changed. And any time that the cube changes, anytime the cube changes, we update the cube. And on every tick, we move the cube. So we've got a 4-line program in Phi that makes a cube and should animate it. On begin, create the cube. When X, Y, or Z of the cube position changes, flag that the cube has changed. When we flag that the cube has changed, update the cube. When the frame count increases, so when a tick happens, then increment the X coordinate. So what will happen if I was to comment that out? What would happen is we create the cube, and we're basically saying anytime the position of the cube changes, update the cube, and it will just stay there. We add this rule, and then the system internally will increment this tick. It will recognize that this has changed. When it's recognized that has changed, it will increment the position of X. When it increments the position of the cube X, it will trigger this rule, which will increment the count of cube. When the count of cube is incremented, there's a change of cube, it will update the cube. So that's great. And then if you want to make it bounce, then we could check for the extents of the area that this is moving, because what I want to do is to get to the point where the ball is sort of bouncing around a square. And you can see that that can be extended here by something like this. It's like on begin graphics cube, and we can say let's do it in the X coordinate, velocity X equals 1, right? I'm going to be a little more complicated now, but on change tick, plus equal Vx. So now I've got a velocity vector. So now we can set the direction. I'm only going to do it in one axis for the moment. I can set the direction of motion by this. I can make this -1. It will go in the other direction. So that's fine. And then I want to just show how a bounce would work. On change, cube dot pos x greater than 10. Vx multiplied by equal -1. So that would make the thing bounce. this would make it bounce between -10 and +10. So now you've got a bouncing ball. And the way to look at this is all this is a statement of intent. This is saying always create a cube when we begin and set Vx equal 1 as well. Whenever there's a change to any of the coordinates of the cube, increment the count cube. Whenever it happens that cube changes, update the cube visually. Whenever there is a tick, so this will increment. It's basically like a frame count. I mean, maybe I could just write that like this. Frame count. On change frame count. That's clearer. Then we increment the position of the cube. If the cube, or when the cube gets beyond 10 units, reverse the velocity. When it goes less than 10, reverse the velocity. And you know, you could also put an or statement in here, but I mean, I don't have that implemented yet. But right, this I'm going to have to work quite significantly on the virtual machine and the interpreter to make this work. But a lot of it is already in place, and this should be doable. Yep, that's looking promising. All right. I think at this point, that's a good point to leave it for tonight. Quite a lot of work to do to get to this point. Leaving aside the setup, which is this code, is you can think of that code as being like, you know, setup. The actual core of the code is this. Change the position every frame. Reverse the velocity when you go beyond 10. Reverse the velocity when you go less than -10. That's exactly the language that you might say to a programmer. But then you know, in imperative language, you would say that, but then the implementation looks nothing like that. The implementation is, you know, float Vx, float, you know, x. Then we have void, yeah, update. And then every tick you do x plus equal Vx, and then you have to do if x is greater than 10, then Vx times equal -1 if x is less than -10. So this is sort of roughly the equivalent of this. Imperative, this is the phi thing, purely declarative, and the position of the, you can move these lines around. It doesn't actually matter the order that you put them in, makes no difference at all. there is a potential. So there is a potential for making this even more compact, because of course I've got to, you could simply get rid of the word on. And I could potentially just replace it with something like this. This is just fun. This, in effect, would be the same thing, right? Just it could. It's basically what I'm trying to say is this is really compact. It's just the if we on change, we could potentially even get rid of that. Potentially, it could be just reduced down to this, and this might be a good way to go. I don't know. But I want things to be readable as well, right? There is an argument that that's even better. But all that's to be decided in the future. Okay, I'm going to save that width there. How did I lose weight? I don't know. I ended up getting into a routine, so I eat. When I wake, I don't have breakfast. I hold off till lunch. At lunch, I have lunch and I eat whatever I want. And then I eat dinner. Dinner about 5 hours later. And then I don't eat until the next lunch. That's it. The only time I've ever lost weight in my life has been where I where I sort of only eat once a day. It just doesn't bother me. It's really weird. I'm not getting. I've tried it with other timings. This timing is really working quite well. And I don't snack anymore. It's really weird. Okay, anyway, that's it for tonight. Lots of waffling, some progress, a little bit of refactoring, and now it's time for a video. So what video shall we have? I feel like let's have a look. I suppose I could look at some of these other videos, like for example, if I switch this account to sort of here. I don't really use this. I suppose I could look at some of these other videos. Hang on a minute. Account to sort of here. Switch account, your channel. Really use this. Come on. There we go. And so we had. Let's do this one. Why not? It says this 2 years ago. This is actually like about 13 years ago, 12 years ago, I believe. This video. With a song I wrote a while ago now. Called We're Always Right. Let's just pop that over here. It's actually me playing the violin on this. It's a very simple violin piece. Improvised it. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. And yeah, see you probably tomorrow.
when I don't dream at all. As I lie asleep, there's nothing left of me. Each night we die with the faith that the morning will arrive, and we're always right. But what would happen if one time it didn't arrive? There could pass 1 billion years or more, till through some chance coincidence given time, I would come alive. Each night we die with the faith that the morning will arrive. We're always right. But there is another puzzle within this too. What stops me waking up as you? Or conceivably you waking up as me. Each night we die, faith that the morning will arrive, and we're always right. It's clear there's no difference between you or me. So one further mystery, why can't we live together peacefully? 'Cause each night we die with the faith that the morning will arrive, and we're always